depending on who wins, I think we will see a further step toward redemption and maybe love from the fans. I don't know. It's a tricky one with these two guys. What's up, guys? Laura Sanko here, getting ready for UFC 280. If you haven't checked it out already, go check out my preview of the main event for UFC 280. It's going to be an absolutely sensational matchup for the lightweight strap. But this video is about the co-main event for the bantamweight strap as Aljamain Sterling looks to defend against former two-time champion, TJ Dillashaw. And what a fun matchup this is. This is a good one, guys. And this entire card, unbelievable, top to bottom. I know I say that a lot. We all say that a lot, but I really mean it this time. This is a card where every fight means something. Every single fight has implications for that division. It's not just about like, oh, this is a fun, nostalgic fight, or oh, this is, I don't know, a throwback fight, or this is a cool matchup. Every single fight on this card has real impact on the division. And that's what I love about it. Like, this is a true fight fans type of card. And I want to talk about this co-main event because this is a really fascinating one. And when I first thought about this matchup, I remembered back to interviewing TJ Dillashaw backstage, and I can't remember what pay-per-view it was, but this was a little while ago. It was when Aljo fought Petr Yan the second time. I'm trying to remember what that was. 273. So that's all right. Anyway, obviously, of course, he's there as a guest athlete, and I picked his brain. I said, obviously, would love to get your thoughts on the main event, and he went into pretty heavy detail. But his big takeaway was that he really thought Petr Yan was going to walk through Aljamain Sterling, and I thought about that immediately because, like, man, I wonder what he was thinking as he was sitting there watching that fight, because I think he was thinking what probably many of us were thinking. And I'll be one to say, I wasn't necessarily, I didn't think that Aljo was going to get shellacked by Yan, but I thought it would look more like the first fight, and it did not at all. The fact that Aljamain Sterling was able to go away from that first fight that ended in such a controversial way and make the adjustments necessary, even though he was getting completely ridiculed, online, all the stuff he had to go through to go out there and to show the improvements that he did. I think in the first fight, he got taken down, like, I don't know how many times, but in the second fight, he was able to get Yan down and do what he does best. And this is the cornerstone of Aljamain Sterling's game, because yes, he can strike on the outside. He's got some funky striking, some unconventional movement, but everything he does is to set up the takedown. And when he sets up the takedown, he is looking for the back. And his back take, his grappling game overall is absolutely sensational. And I know I'm not the first person to say that. This is not like rocket science. You can look at his Tapology, see how many rear naked chokes he has. But when you really start to look at some of the details of the things that he does when he takes the back, you can really appreciate just how high level of a black belt he really is. We tend to pigeonhole him as a wrestler who gets rear naked chokes. But when you watch him grapple, he's a phenomenal jiu-jitsu player. And when you couple that with the wrestling acumen that he is a grappler. And that it's something that not every MMA fighter is. There are a lot of jiu-jitsu guys who don't have the wrestling game to back it up. And there are a lot of wrestling guys who can ground and pound, but don't really know how to be both effective and offensive in terms of ground and pound, as well as hunting submissions at the same time. And that is what Aljamain Sterling is so incredibly good at. On the other side of him, though, is one of the greatest bantamweights of all time in TJ Dillashaw, former two-time champion. He's got 8 wins by knockout, 3 submission wins. He's won 5 of his last 6. And I know that the last fight he had with Corey Sandhagen was very close and somewhat controversial. But when you think about the fact that he fought most of that fight with a blown knee, and you go back and watch it and you can see it, it's pretty incredible that he had the performance he did. Because while the cornerstone of Aljo's game is that striking to set up the takedown, to set up the back take, the cornerstone of TJ's game is his footwork. TJ Dillashaw has some of, if not the best footwork in that entire division. And that is, in my opinion, the best division in the UFC right now. TJ Dillashaw's ability to find the appropriate angle to land his punches, his constant switching of stances. But it's like, there are a lot of guys who faint, and there are a lot of guys who switch stances, but they do it somewhat purposelessly. I don't think that's a word. They do it without much purpose. It's like they figured out how to switch stances, and they figured out how to feint, but they haven't figured out what that means or fully how to use it. And that's something that TJ Dillashaw is one of the best at. And before I get lambasted for that, because I know someone's like, oh, she doesn't know what a feint is, or she doesn't know why, what does she mean by not knowing how to switch stances appropriately? I'll give you an example. There are a lot of guys who will feint on the outside, and their feints look so good. I mean, they're convincing, they're hard feints. They feint, and they're giving different looks, and they're finding different angles. But as soon as they break like what I would call the bubble barrier of their opponent, the feints mean nothing. Like they're only feinting in particular ways, and they're only doing it at certain distances. And once your opponent figures that out, then the feint means nothing, and it's really just you draining yourself. It's same thing with switching stances. Until you can switch stances inside of a combination, the people that do it, on the outside and switch and then re-enter, you're kind of, I'm not saying it doesn't have any purpose, but it's just TJ Dillashaw has reached that ultimate level of being able to incorporate those things into his game. And it makes him really, really tough to handle on the feet. The way that he moves, angle to angle, Petr Yan, for Aljamain was a little bit easier because Petr has this, this tight, high tie guard, and he just marches people down. He suffocates them with his pressure. He's just always right there. TJ Dillashaw is not really like that. Like he's constantly moving side to side and coming at you from a different place, a different angle, and therefore different weapons are being utilized as he makes that sort of like corralling motion, putting you where he wants you to be inside of the octagon at any given time. And super important in this fight, he has phenomenal takedown defense. TJ Dillashaw, 86.5% takedown defense. Incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And another stat that really sticks out to me is both of their volume. Aljamain Sterling, 4.56 significant strikes per minute. TJ Dillashaw, 5.26 significant strikes per minute. TJ Dillashaw, 9 knockdowns in the UFC, which is a very, very high number for a bantamweight. Aljamain does not have any knockdowns in the UFC. I don't know that that's a huge surprise to anybody. I think we all know that this is, in a lot of respects, this is a grappler versus striker matchup, although TJ Dillashaw certainly has some very good grappling. I think where he might use it in this one would be to anti-grapple. I don't really see him looking to initiate, a lot of takedowns on Aljo. I think TJ is going to try to keep this on the feet, use that superior footwork, use the superior striking to tag up Aljo, make Aljo question smashing that distance and finding those takedowns. That's my thought on it. We'll see what happens. Both of these guys have phenomenal gas. Both of them have the heart of a warrior. And what's interesting for this fight is what's at stake for both of them, right? Because, for TJ Dillashaw, coming off of the shoulder surgeries and now coming off of the knee injury against Sandhagen, he's at an age and a point in his career where this is it. This is probably his last chance at grabbing that bantamweight title for the third time, which is really, it's easy to say that. It's really hard to do justice to how difficult that would be to get a belt, not once, not twice, but 3 times. That's an incredible feat. And for him to, I don't know, have that full circle moment of coming back and being able to do what he wanted to do on his own terms and do it clean, I think would be a really beautiful story of redemption. I know a lot of people don't want TJ to have any redemption. I know they don't really, I don't know. There's a lot of thought around that. It's such a, it's a tricky conversation to have. And every time I have it with DC, I'm aware that he was touched by it, obviously more than I ever will be. But I think I don't know, the empathetic heart in me wants to know, or wants to say that he served his time. He did what he needed to do. He owned up to it, and he's back and he's clean. And from what I understand, they tested previous samples and really isolated when he was doing it. So I could be wrong about this. My understanding is this is not something that was like his entire career is a lie or anything like that. So I would love to see TJ be able to go out on a high note and not be only remembered for the doping issue. On the flip side of that, we've got Aljamain Sterling, who is just coming off his biggest redemption moment. I mean, years, or at least a year, of people just completely on that poor guy. I mean, making fun of him, and you know, he did his best to kind of lean into it and make it a joke. Maybe made it too much of a joke, maybe leaned it a little bit too hard. I don't know. That's not for me to say though. But since then, and the performance that he put on against Petr Yan the second time, I think there should be no doubt what Aljamain Sterling is capable of. That man has absolutely earned the belt that sits around his waist. So in many ways, you've got, you know, a guy who's really not well liked because he leaned too far into this character he created to sort of protect himself from the public ridicule, and a guy who is not well liked because he had to serve a suspension for performance enhancing drugs. And depending on who wins, I think we will see a further step toward redemption and maybe love from the fans. I don't know. It's a tricky one with these two guys, but regardless of all that stuff, what takes place in this fight, the chess match between the striking of TJ Dillashaw, the grappling of Aljamain Sterling, it's going to be another fantastic fight. This whole card is crazy, guys. It's absolutely insane. I head out tomorrow. I can't wait to get to Abu Dhabi and take these fights in. And yeah, we're going to have a lot to talk about after this one. We'll see you there.